Iran accusing Israel of mass murder after thousands of pages exploded across parts of Lebanon and Syria, killing 12 people and wounding nearly 3,000. Lebanon's health minister says the victims include fighters of Iran-backed Hezbollah, 4 health workers and 2 children. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, was also injured. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah is set to address the attack in a speech tomorrow. Israel has not commented on the deadly explosions. Just hours before the attack, Israel announced it was broadening its war aims against Hamas to include its fight against the group's ally Hezbollah. With so many people injured from the almost simultaneous detonations, hospitals have become overwhelmed with patients. The attack is yet another major setback for the militant group after losing several key commanders to airstrikes in recent months as fighting with Israel intensifies. The pages involved in the security breach were originally thought to be linked to Taiwanese electronics company Gold Apollo. Images of some of the destroyed pages showed stickers consistent with those made by the company. However, Gold Apollo denies making the devices. CNA's Victoria Jen has more.
Founded in 1995, Gold Apollo is a small Taiwanese manufacturer of wireless communication products with a capitalization of $3 million. According to information on its website, the company has 40 employees, and its products are mainly used by restaurants, fire departments, and care centers. Its owner, Xu Qingguang, has denied manufacturing the pagers that exploded en masse in Lebanon. He said they have been made by a European company named BAC through a licensing deal. They have had business dealings for 3 years, and they signed a contract about 2 years ago.
我有卖它的，就是用那个商标授权给他哦，所以这个产品不是阿波罗的该有的产品，是我授权给他们贴牌的一个产品哦，所以在这里跟大家做一个声明哦。
Xu doesn't rule out the possibility of filing a lawsuit overseas against BAC. Analysts in Taiwan have expressed doubts that the Taiwanese company would have been willingly participated in the attack. Taiwan's economic ministry has said that there is no record of direct exports of the device to Lebanon. Victoria Jen, CNA, Taipei.
Tony Loughran, director at Zero Risk International, runs through how much planning could have been involved ahead of the attack.
They've done a switch and in mass as well. So potentially what they could have done is built these devices and then switched the package from a commercial point of view. So they're already pre-prepped and the actual small explosives are in there. It takes a special small motherboard to be in there. But at the end of the day, as we said anyway, it's commercial explosives. It only takes a small amount anyway to cause maximum devastation around the abdominal area, which is where some of the pages are kept. And also for some of the children that were involved at that height as well.
Well, let's stay on the tensions in the Middle East. For that, we're bringing in our correspondents, Sarah Coates, reporting live from Tel Aviv, and Nick Harper joining us live from Washington, D.C. Sarah, first to you. Israel has not claimed responsibility for the explosion. So what more do we know about who's behind the attacks?
Hello there, Jill. No comment from the Israelis, and it's fairly unlikely that there will be one, given that it is Israel's policy not to comment on such matters. Now, as we go to air, defence officials, also the Prime Minister, other security officials, they're huddling at the Curia here in Tel Aviv, that is the Israeli military headquarters, for very high-level meetings. And what we do need to remember here is that this attack, or this string of attacks, came just hours after Israel expanded its war goals, coming out to say that a new goal is to return these displaced residents of the north. There are some 60,000 people in Israel that have been internally displaced since this war began. Now, also at this hour, we do understand that the Israeli military is moving some of these elite troops from the 98th Division. They've previously been deployed in Gaza, but will now be moved to these northern areas after having a 3-week or so break. But certainly what we do understand from a number of reports, Jill, is that these devices, these explosive devices, had actually been planted in these pages some months ago. They were initially planned, reportedly, as a pretext to a wider conflict, but apparently they were detonated early over fears that this plot may be uncovered.
You spoke of the wider conflict. What could a retaliation by Hezbollah look like, and the impact of that potentially on widening the conflict?
This is a major escalation. This is an unprecedented security breach, really shattering weeks of what you could call a tense calm here in the region after these assassinations of key operatives. We're talking about the military commander of Hezbollah, Fuad Shakur, in Beirut, and also Hamas's Politburo leader, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. Now, Hezbollah is vowing to retaliate. Still unclear as to what that could look like. But in the past, what we have seen is rockets, drones, many of them shot into Israel. So certainly this is a scenario that Israel would be bracing for. We have heard from a number of key leaders in Israel's north telling residents who do remain there to stay very, very close to shelter. There is no doubt that this string of attacks has certainly put a dent in Hezbollah's military capabilities, also, of course, its communication capabilities. But once again, it is vowing to retaliate, but it is yet to be seen how this will look. And this is really sending diplomacy into overdrive. One of the reasons that the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is right now in Cairo.
And that is a good point to go from Tel Aviv to Washington, D.C., where Nick Harper is joining us. Now, Nick, as Sarah said, Secretary of State from the U.S., Antony Blinken, making another visit to the region, meeting Egypt's president in Cairo today. What did he have to say about the blasts?
Yes, of course, this was all meant to be about allies meeting in the region to discuss that ceasefire deal, to discuss the release of the hostages, very much being overtaken, though, by the events in Lebanon. Antony Blinken said that he couldn't speak about the potential impact on Hezbollah, but he did say it was imperative for everyone to avoid taking steps that could escalate the conflict. We heard similar remarks from President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's campaign as well, his office putting out a statement afterwards, very much pledging their support for Lebanon, but also saying that it was time to de-escalate, rejecting any attempts to escalate the conflict and expand its scope regionally. So both men calling for de-escalation, calling for calm heads. But there is a question about impartiality. Bear in mind, of course, that Egypt is an Arab nation supporting another Arab nation, Lebanon. So there are questions about whether it can be impartial as a mediator in these ceasefire talks. But remember, we've seen similar criticism in the past from Hamas when it comes to the United States, questioning its impartiality, considering its support of Israel and the government of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, it does make progress on any possible Gaza ceasefire and hostage negotiations even more critical, doesn't it? What will the two discuss in these areas?
That's right, Julia. It is something that they have been able to speak about. Of course, that was meant to be the main focus of this trip. Egypt putting out a statement saying that the two of them exchange views on ways to intensify joint efforts between the US, Egypt and Qatar, the three countries that are playing the role of mediator in this to try and force a ceasefire deal and a deal to release the hostages who are still being kept by Hamas. Antony Blinken has also been speaking about it. He said that progress has been made on that deal over the last month and a half. And he now said that the negotiating statement that they've been putting together, 18 out of the 15 paragraphs have now been agreed on, or rather 15 out of the 18 have been been agreed on. But he did say there were still some sticking points, issues that remained that needed to be resolved. Let's listen to what he had to say a little bit earlier.
The most important thing in this moment is seeing a demonstration of political will to finally conclude this agreement. And that's what we discussed. We also discussed in some detail what would be necessary arrangements if an agreement is finally reached in terms of the so-called day after. What happens in Gaza in terms of its governance, its security, its reconstruction. And here as well, Egypt is and will be a critical partner.
And US sources are saying there are now 2 sticking points remaining. The Philadelphia corridor, that area of land that separates at the bottom of Gaza with the top of Egypt. Israel refusing to withdraw, Hamas saying they absolutely need to if a deal is to be done. And also the sticking point of Palestinians being held by Israel. How many of them get released as part of all of this? But it is worth bearing in mind that ahead of Blinken's trip, there was really none of the fanfare that we normally see, no promises of a breakthrough. US officials very much trying to downplay expectations of what we could see coming out of the back of this 2-day trip.
All right, Mike, thanks. Now I can thank you, Nick Harper, reporting live from Washington, D.C. Also, to Sarah Coates with her report, which was live from Tel Aviv.